Are you leaving tens of thousands of dollars on the table? That's not a hypothetical question. For countless veterans navigating the labyrinthine process of VA disability claims, the answer is a resounding yes. The system is complex by design, and small, seemingly insignificant errors can delay your benefits for years or cost you a higher rating that you absolutely deserve. We're not talking about minor adjustments. We're talking about life-changing financial security that you earned through your service. This is the definitive guide, a comprehensive breakdown of 25 critical VA claim tips and strategies that veterans and their advocates use to maximize compensation and secure the future they fought for. If you execute even a handful of these steps correctly, you could unlock thousands in back pay and ensure a stable monthly income that recognizes the true severity of your service-connected conditions. Don't let bureaucracy steal your peace of mind or your financial stability. Let's dive deep into the strategies that separate successful claims from the denials and lowball offers. The absolute first step, the foundational move that protects every potential dollar, is Tip 1. File an intent to file, ITF, immediately, regardless of readiness. This is perhaps the single most important piece of advice in the entire VA claims process, and misunderstanding its power is the primary way veterans lose out on massive amounts of back pay. An intent to file is a simple form, VA Form 210966, or can even be initiated through a quick online submission on the VA website. It requires almost no information about your actual claim, but it serves a monumental purpose. It locks in your effective date. Once the VA receives your ITF, you have exactly 1 year, 365 days, to submit the fully developed claim package. Why is this critical? Because when your claim is eventually approved, your benefits will be calculated retroactively back to the date the VA received that initial ITF, not the date you finished gathering all your complex medical evidence. Imagine taking 6 months to collect private medical opinions, buddy statements, and review your service records. If you filed the ITF on January 1st and submitted the full claim on July 1st, and the claim is approved in December, you get 12 months of back pay starting from the previous January 1st. If you waited until July 1st to file anything, you just lost 6 months of compensation. For a veteran eventually rated at 70% disability, that delay could easily cost upwards of $15,000 in lost retroactive pay, simply because they didn't spend 5 minutes filing the ITF first. This protective layer is non-negotiable. File it now, worry about the evidence later. This initial action is the financial safeguard that guarantees the maximum possible effective date, ensuring that every dollar you are owed is accounted for from the earliest possible moment, which is the cornerstone of maximizing your total payout. The complexity of gathering evidence often causes veterans to delay the initial filing, but the ITF bypasses this delay entirely, establishing your place in line and preserving your right to compensation for the duration of the evidence collection phase. This simple administrative step is the veteran's shield against bureaucratic slowness, converting what could be months of lost income into guaranteed back pay. Always remember, the clock starts ticking in your favor the moment the VA receives that intent, making it the most immediate and impactful action you can take. Moving past the protective filing, we must understand the architecture of a successful claim, leading to Tip 2. Master the 3 essential elements: service connection, diagnosis, and nexus. The VA is not looking for a compelling story. They are looking for 3 specific pieces of legal and medical evidence, and if any one of these pillars is missing, your claim will fail, guaranteed. First, you must have a current, verified medical diagnosis of a disability. This must come from a licensed medical professional. Self-diagnosis, even if accurate, is insufficient. Second, you must demonstrate a service connection. Chamba, an event, injury, or exposure that occurred during your active duty. This can be a specific incident, chronic exposure, or even the aggravation of a pre-existing condition. Third, and most frequently misunderstood, is the nexus. The nexus is the medical link, the bridge that connects the current diagnosis, Pillar 1, directly to the service event, Pillar 2. A doctor must state, usually using specific language like is at least as likely as not, that your current condition was caused or aggravated by your service. If you have chronic knee pain, diagnosis, and you fell off a truck in 1995, service event, but no doctor has explicitly written that the 1995 fall caused or contributed to the current knee pain, the nexus is missing, and the claim is dead on arrival. Veterans often mistakenly believe that having the diagnosis and the service records is enough, but without that explicit medically sound connection, the nexus, the VA has no legal basis to approve the claim. Ensuring the presence of these three elements is fundamental. If you spend time gathering evidence, make sure every piece of evidence supports one of these three required components. To effectively build those three pillars, you need the blueprints, which brings us to Tip 3. Obtain your C file, claims file, early and study it. Your C file is the comprehensive history the VA has on you, every claim, every medical record the VA possesses, every decision, every C&P exam transcript. Veterans often wait until they are denied before requesting this file, which is a massive strategic mistake. Requesting the C file can take months, sometimes 6 to 9 months, but having it is invaluable for several reasons. First, it shows you what evidence the VA already has, preventing you from wasting time resubmitting records they already scanned in 2005. Second, and more importantly, it often contains exculpatory evidence or prior favorable findings that the VA might overlook in a new claim. Perhaps a previous C&P examiner noted a symptom that supports your current claim, or maybe a denial letter from 15 years ago made an administrative error you can now exploit. Knowing what the VA knows allows you to tailor your current claim precisely, addressing past deficiencies and leveraging existing favorable evidence. Sending a Freedom of Information Act (FOIA) request for your C file should be done concurrently with your intent to file. It's a long-term strategy that pays dividends by revealing the VA's perspective on your entire medical history. Once you have the C file, the sheer volume of paper can be overwhelming, which necessitates. Tip 4. Organize your service treatment records, STRs, digitally and chronologically. VA claims often hinge on finding a single, critical entry in thousands of pages of disorganized records. If you are relying on a VSO or the VA examiner to wade through loose paper or poorly scanned PDFs, you are introducing unnecessary risk. Take the time, or hire, someone to digitize your STRs, organize them by date, and, crucially, highlight or tag the specific entries relevant to the conditions you are claiming. For example, if you are claiming tinnitus, highlight every mention of noise exposure, hearing tests, or ear protection issues. If you are claiming a back injury, highlight every sick call visit related to back pain, even minor ones. When you submit your evidence, reference these highlighted pages explicitly. Instead of writing, "See my STRs," write, "See STRs," page 452, entry dated 10/14/2001, where I reported severe, persistent lower back pain. This level of organization makes the VA reviewer's job easier, which in turn makes them more likely to find the evidence they need to approve your claim quickly. Disorganization is the silent killer of claims. Precision is the accelerator. This preparation phase culminates in Tip 5. Identify and claim secondary conditions before the initial rating decision. Many veterans focus only on the primary injury they sustained in service, the bad knee, the traumatic brain injury, TBI, or the PTSD. However, the true financial value often lies in the secondary conditions that stem directly from the primary service-connected disability. A primary condition is one directly caused by service. A secondary condition is one caused or aggravated by the primary condition. Examples include sleep apnea caused by PTSD medication, depression resulting from chronic pain due to a bad back, or peripheral neuropathy caused by diabetes, which itself was service-connected due to Agent Orange exposure. If you wait until after your initial rating to file the secondary claims, you lose the effective date advantage. If your back injury is approved and rated at 30%, and 6 months later you file for the resulting depression, the depression claim starts a new effective date. If you filed both simultaneously, the depression claim would share the effective date of the back claim, potentially resulting in thousands more in back pay. Always brainstorm. What physical or mental health issues have developed because of your service-connected condition? Claim them together. Now that the framework is set, the focus shifts to building undeniable evidence, starting with Tip 6. Maximize the power of lay evidence, especially buddy statements and spousal statements. Lay evidence, non-medical testimony from people who know you, is often overlooked but carries immense weight, especially when medical records from service are sparse or non-existent. The VA regulations explicitly permit lay evidence to be used to establish the three elements: the service connection, the current severity, and the nexus, in certain cases like chronic conditions. Buddy statements, VA Form 21 from fellow service members who witnessed the injury or the onset of symptoms, are gold. They establish the service event. Spousal or family statements are crucial for establishing the current severity of your condition and how it affects your daily life, which directly impacts your rating percentage. A buddy can testify that you were hit by a vehicle during deployment. Your spouse can testify that you now wake up screaming multiple times a week due to nightmares, or that you can no longer lift your grandchild because of your back pain. These personal accounts provide the functional impairment evidence that medical records often lack. Ensure these statements are detailed, signed, dated, and describe what the person observed, not just how they feel about you. This leads directly to Tip 7. Write a detailed, compelling, and consistent personal statement, VA Form 21-4138. This statement is your chance to speak directly to the rater and the C&P examiner, filling in the gaps that records leave. Your statement should be a focused narrative that connects your military experience to your current suffering. Crucially, it must address the three elements of the claim. Do not write a diary. Write a legal brief disguised as a personal story. Describe the onset of the injury or illness in service, how it was initially treated or ignored, and most importantly, detail the current functional limitations. Use concrete examples. I cannot sit through a movie without agonizing pain, or I had to quit my job as a forklift operator because I can no longer operate the controls safely. Consistency is key here. The symptoms and limitations described in your personal statement must align perfectly with what you report to your doctors, what your spouse says in their statement, and what you will tell the C&P examiner. Any inconsistency is a red flag that the VA will use to discredit your entire claim. The importance of consistent documentation extends beyond the VA system, demanding Tip 8. Document symptoms consistently and thoroughly in civilian medical records. The VA rater's job is to look for continuity of care. If you are claiming severe migraines that prevent you from working, but your civilian primary care physician's notes never mention migraines, the VA will conclude the condition is either not severe or not current. Every time you see a civilian provider, Whether it's for a routine checkup, a specialist, or even urgent care, ensure that you mention all your relevant service-connected conditions and, critically, how they are affecting your daily life. Do not be stoic. If your knee hurts, tell the doctor your knee hurts. If your PTSD is causing irritability, report the irritability. Ensure the doctor records these complaints in the official medical record. These civilian records become powerful, independent corroboration when your claim goes before the VA. If the civilian record shows you sought treatment for condition X every 3 months for 5 years, it proves chronicity and severity. This requires a shift in perspective, outlined in BEAM. Tip 9. Understand the difference between medical necessity and VA necessity in documentation. Civilian doctors focus on treating illness, medical necessity. The VA focuses on rating disability, VA necessity. When seeking private care, you need to gently guide your providers to document your limitations using language that the VA understands. For example, a civilian doctor might write, "Patient reports mild discomfort." While medically accurate, mild discomfort results in a low VA rating. Instead, you need the doctor to document the functional impairment caused by the discomfort. You might say, "My knee pain limits my ability to stand for more than 20 minutes, which is why I had to switch to a desk job." The doctor should record that limitation. If you are claiming a mental health condition, the record should detail occupational and social impairment, using terms relevant to the VA's rating schedule, e.g., inability to maintain concentration, difficulty establishing relationships, recurrent panic attacks. Learn the language of the 38 CFR Part 4 rating schedule and ensure your medical records speak that language. Sometimes the evidence trail is too weak and you need professional help to bridge the nexus gap, which leads to Tip 10. Secure a strong private nexus. Letter. Independent medical opinion when the VA nexus is missing or weak. If the VA denies your claim because the C&P examiner stated your condition was less likely than not caused by service, or if your service records are too vague, you must fight back with an independent medical opinion, IMO. A strong nexus letter is written by a private physician, preferably one familiar with VA claims, who reviews your entire file, STRs, civilian records, C-file, and explicitly states, with rationale, that your condition is at least as likely as not, the VA standard, or, more likely than not, service-connected. This letter must cite medical literature and specific facts from your service history to be credible. This is often the most expensive part of a claim, potentially costing thousands of dollars, but if it successfully overturns a denial and secures a high rating, the return on investment can be astronomical, easily saving you tens of thousands in lost benefits over time. Do not settle for a physician who just writes a one-sentence opinion. The letter must be robust, detailed, and persuasive. The most stressful and often decisive moment in the claims process is the compensation and pension C&P exam. Mastering this interaction is covered in Tip 11. Prepare a detailed, symptom-focused timeline or chronology specifically for the C&P examiner. The C&P examiner is not your treating physician. They are contracted by the VA to perform a snapshot evaluation for rating purposes. They often have 15 to 30 minutes to review your file and assess your condition. You cannot rely on them to read 5,000 pages of records during the exam. Create a concise 1- or 2-page document, a chronological list of relevant events to hand to the examiner. This document should list the service event date, initial treatment date, subsequent civilian treatment dates, and a bulleted list of your current most severe symptoms and functional limitations. This focuses the examiner's attention immediately on the key facts, ensures they don't miss crucial dates, and sets the stage for your interview. It's a professional courtesy that also serves your strategic interest. When speaking with the examiner, remember, Tip 12. Be honest about your history, but focus solely on the current severity and frequency of symptoms. Veterans often make two fatal errors during C&P exams. They either minimize their pain due to military conditioning, or they spend the entire time talking about the service event 20 years ago. The examiner is primarily concerned with your current level of disability. If you are asked how your back feels today, you must report the pain level accurately. If today is a good day, say, today is a 4 out of 10, but on a typical day, it's an 8, and I experience flare-ups that put me in bed 3 days a month. You must convey the average severity and the worst-case scenario, as the VA rates based on the most severe manifestation of the disability. Do not exaggerate, but absolutely do not downplay the impact of the condition on your life. To ensure the examiner covers all the necessary ground, you must be aware of Tip 13. Understand the Specific Disability Benefits Questionnaire, DBQ, for your condition. The C&P exam is not a free-form conversation. The examiner is required to fill out a standardized form called the Disability Benefits Questionnaire, DBQ. There is a specific DBQ for PTSD, one for knees, one for migraines, etc. These forms guide the rating decision by requiring the examiner to check specific boxes related to range of motion, frequency of symptoms, and functional impairment. You can find blank copies of these DBQs online. Reviewing the DBQ before your exam allows you to anticipate every question and ensure that you provide the examiner with the information necessary to check the boxes that correspond to a higher rating. For example, if the DBQ for your joint condition requires measurements of flexion and extension, be prepared to point out exactly where the pain begins during the range of motion test, as pain itself is a limitation that can justify a higher rating, even if the physical range of motion seems adequate. This brings us to a crucial psychological barrier. Tip 14. Do not minimize your pain, functional limitations, or mental health struggles. Be specific about the worst days. The military culture often dictates enduring pain silently. This mindset is financially devastating during a VA exam. If a mental health examiner asks about social isolation, don't just say, "I don't go out much." Say, "I haven't been to a public gathering in 6 months because the crowds trigger intense anxiety and paranoia, forcing me to isolate myself completely." If an orthopedic examiner asks if you can walk, don't say, "Sure, I can walk." Say, "I can walk about 100 yards before the pain becomes sharp and radiating, forcing me to stop and rest, and I cannot carry anything heavier than a gallon of milk while walking that distance." The VA rates based on the functional consequences of your disability. If you minimize the pain, the examiner will document a minimal level of impairment, costing you rating percentage points and thousands of dollars annually. Because the C&P exam is so crucial, you must protect your testimony, leading to Tip 15. Record the C&P exam, if state laws permit, or bring a witness if allowed. While VA policy is generally resistant to recording, many states permit one-party consent recording, meaning you can record the conversation without the examiner's explicit permission, though you should verify local laws first. If recording is not permitted, bringing a witness, like a VSO or a family member, if the VA allows it for that specific exam, can be invaluable. Why? Because C&P examiners sometimes make errors, fail to record symptoms accurately, or even omit crucial information. If your claim is denied based on an inaccurate C&P report, having a recording or a witness statement detailing what actually transpired provides irrefutable evidence for a higher-level review or an appeal, preventing months or years of delay. Protecting the integrity of the C&P exam is protecting your financial future. With the evidence phase complete, the strategy shifts to maximizing the rating, starting with Tip 16. Understand the rating schedule, 38 CFR Part 4, to target specific criteria for the highest possible rating. The VA rating schedule is a public document that explicitly details what symptoms correspond to 10%, 30%, 50%, 70%, and 100% disability for every condition. Veterans who succeed study this schedule. For instance, if you are claiming migraines, you know that a 50% rating requires very frequent, completely prostrating, and prolonged attacks productive of severe economic inadaptability. Knowing this, you ensure your personal statement and medical records focus on the frequency of attacks, very frequent, and the economic impact, inadaptability. If you are claiming PTSD, you know a 70% rating requires specific symptoms like suicidal ideation, near continuous panic or depression, and difficulty adapting to stressful circumstances. Not let the VA dictate your rating. Understand the criteria and ensure your evidence meets or exceeds the requirements for the rating you are seeking. This targeted approach is the difference between a 50% rating and a 70% rating, which is a difference of nearly $1,000 per month or $12,000 per year. For those whose disabilities prevent them from working. Tip 17. Look for TDIU, Total Disability Individual Unemployability, indicators early and claim it proactively. TDIU is a benefit that allows the VA to pay a veteran at the 100% disability rate, even if their combined scheduler rating is less than 100%, usually 70% combined, or 60% for a single condition, provided they cannot maintain substantially gainful employment due to their service-connected disabilities. Many veterans rated at 70% or 80% struggle to hold a steady job but fail to realize they are eligible for the full 100% pay. Rate through TDIU. When you file your initial claim, if you know your conditions prevent you from working, include the TDIU claim form, VA Form 218940, immediately. The VA does not always automatically consider TDIU, even if the evidence suggests you cannot work. By filing it proactively, you ensure that if your scheduler rating falls just short of 100%, you still secure the maximum monthly payment, saving you potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. The body and mind are inextricably linked, which is why. Tip 18. Connect mental health conditions to physical conditions, and vice versa, for secondary service connection. This is a massive area of missed compensation. Physical pain often leads to depression, anxiety, or insomnia. Similarly, chronic mental health conditions like PTSD can manifest physically through conditions like irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, chronic pain, or even hypertension. When claiming a secondary condition, the nexus is critical. You need a medical professional to state that the chronic pain from your service-connected back injury is the direct cause of your current severe depression. This strategy not only increases your overall combined rating, but also provides multiple avenues for appeal if one primary claim is denied. By linking conditions, you ensure that the total functional impairment, both physical and psychological, is fully recognized and compensated. Achieving a 100% rating is life-changing, but it is not the ceiling leading to. Tip 19. Investigate special monthly compensation, SMC, eligibility beyond the 100% rating. SMC is additional compensation paid to veterans who have specific, severe disabilities, even those already rated at 100%. SMC is not a rating percentage, it is a category of benefits. Examples include the loss of use of a limb, the need for aid and attendance requiring daily assistance, or combinations of severe disabilities, e.g., 100% plus additional conditions like deafness or blindness. SMC can add hundreds or even thousands of dollars on top of the standard 100% payment. Veterans often assume 100% is the maximum they can receive, but SMC recognizes catastrophic impairment. If you are 100% disabled and require assistance with daily living activities, you should immediately file for SMC, aid and attendance. This is a critical financial maximization strategy that often goes overlooked. For veterans who served in specific theaters or were exposed to certain environmental hazards. Tip 20. Utilize the presumptive conditions rules to bypass the nexus requirement. The VA recognizes that for certain groups of veterans, e.g., those exposed to Agent Orange, Vietnam, those who served in the Gulf War, or those exposed to toxins at Camp Lejeune, certain diseases are so common that the VA presumes a service connection, removing the need for the veteran to prove the nexus. If you served in Vietnam and have type 2 diabetes, the VA presumes the connection to Agent Orange. If you served in the Gulf War and suffer from certain chronic, undiagnosed multi-symptom illnesses, the VA presumes the connection. If you meet the service requirements and have a presumptive condition, your claim is dramatically streamlined, bypassing the need for expensive nexus letters and reducing the risk of denial. Always check the current list of presumptive conditions for your era of service. Failing to use a presumptive connection when available is a huge administrative mistake that forces you to fight a battle you should have won automatically. Even successful claims can face setbacks necessitating expertise in the appeals process, starting with Tip 21. Never, under any circumstances, miss the one-year deadline for appeals or supplemental claims. After the VA issues a rating decision, you have exactly 1 year to challenge that decision, whether through a supplemental claim, a higher-level review, HLR, or an appeal to the Board of Veterans' Appeals, BVA. If you miss this 1-year window, the decision becomes final, and you lose the effective date. This means if you are denied and wait 13 months to refile, the new claim starts a brand new effective date, potentially costing you an entire year's worth of back pay. If you receive a denial, even if you are overwhelmed or frustrated, mark the deadline on your calendar and file something, an appeal, an HLR, or an intent to file for a supplemental claim, before that year is up to maintain your effective date and protect your retroactive benefits. When challenging a decision, you must select the correct path, which is Tip 22. Choose the correct appeal lane, supplemental claim, higher level review, HLR, or Board of Veterans' Appeals, BVA. The VA modernized its appeal system into 3 distinct lanes, each serving a different purpose. The higher level review, HLR, is used when you believe the VA made an error based on the evidence already in your file. No new evidence is allowed. This is fast and effective for correcting administrative mistakes or misinterpretations of existing records. The SAC supplemental claim is used when you have new and relevant evidence to submit, like a new nexus letter, a new diagnosis, or additional buddy statements to overturn a prior denial. The POTNI, Board of Veterans' Appeals, BVA, is the final step, used when you disagree with the outcome of the HLR or supplemental claim. Choosing the wrong lane, AIEGE, filing an HLR when you need to submit new evidence, wastes time and delays your benefits. Understand the difference between an error, HLR, and missing evidence, supplemental claim. The distinction between the HLR and supplemental claim is so critical, it deserves its own focus. Tip 23. Understand the difference between error, HLR, and new evidence, supplemental claim. If the VA denied your claim because the C&P examiner failed to address a key symptom clearly documented in your service records, that is an error of interpretation, and an HLR is the appropriate path. The HLR reviewer looks at the exact same file and determines if the previous decision was justified based on the evidence available at that time. If the VA denied your claim because you lacked a medical nexus, and you then obtain a strong private nexus letter that is new and relevant evidence, and you must file a supplemental claim to introduce it. Attempting to submit new evidence during an HLR will result in the claim being kicked out of the HLR lane and potentially delayed. This strategic choice is often the difference between a swift approval and a protracted multi-year appeal process. The ultimate financial goal is tied to Tip 24. Protect your effective date, the date your benefits actually start. We already discussed the intent to file, but effective dates can also be protected through continuous pursuit. If you file a claim, it is denied, and you appeal within the 1-year window, and then you appeal again, and so on. Your effective date generally remains protected back to the date of the initial intent to file, even if the process takes 5 years. However, if you let the 1-year appeal deadline lapse, the continuity is broken, and a subsequent claim, even if approved, will only start paying from the date of the new claim. Every action you take, the ITF, the timely appeal, the submission of new evidence, must be viewed through the lens of protecting that initial effective date, as that date determines the total amount of back pay you receive. Losing the effective date is the single most costly mistake a veteran can make. Finally, once a decision is rendered, proactive management is key, requiring Tip 25. Review your rating decision letter meticulously for errors, missed conditions, or incorrect effective dates. Do not simply celebrate the approval or mourn the denial. The VA decision letter, the rating narrative, is a complex legal document. You must read it thoroughly. Did the VA grant service connection for Condition A but overlook Condition B, which you claimed simultaneously? Did they grant a 50% rating but fail to mention the secondary condition that resulted from it? Did they assign an effective date that is later than your intent to file date? The VA makes administrative errors frequently. If you find a mistake, you can often correct it quickly through a specific appeal, like a clear and unmistakable error claim or an HLR. By scrutinizing the decision letter, you ensure that every condition you claimed is addressed, every rating is accurate, and, most importantly, that your effective date maximizes your financial compensation. These 25 tips are not just procedural guidelines. They are the financial safeguards that veterans use to navigate a system designed for complexity. By filing the intent to file immediately, mastering the 3 elements of a claim, diligently documenting your current functional limitations, preparing meticulously for the C&P exam, and understanding the strategic appeal lanes, you transition from a passive applicant to an empowered claimant. Remember, the VA rates based on evidence, not emotion. Your financial security, thousands in back pay, and guaranteed monthly income hinges on your ability to provide that evidence clearly, consistently, and strategically. Do not hesitate. Start organizing your records today, file that intent to file, and take control of the benefits you rightfully earned. The time you spend mastering these steps now will save you a lifetime of financial struggle and anxiety.